before we get into the life of our children's digital world, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Remember that we model them and they copy everything. Even when it comes to emotional regulation techniques, they copy the way we are. And the first thing that I want you to think about when you get upset. What do you do when you get upset? Do you criticize your spouse, your partner? Do you shut down? Do you look at your phone? Or are you a person that says, you know what, maybe you're right, I screwed up, I'm sorry. And take a look at your child. How does your child regulate their own emotions? I bet that with time, as they're going to grow up, they're going to be copying our interpersonal manners. And our interpersonal manners are the result of how we deal with our own emotions, okay? So it's so important that we are honest to ourselves, that we understand that, so that we don't put our own frustrations in the mind of our children. You want to go into the next one, Evelyn?
Okay, yes. And with that, we also need to take a look at our own expectations and our own emotions around the way we function and around what we kind of expect and maybe project onto our kids. So I'm going to explain what this means, right? So first of all, there's this whole notion. So I actually love that a lot of you guys wrote bored. This will take us into the next topic of boredom. But there's this kind of like, we live in this spectrum where we feel like it's not a spectrum. It actually feels like black or white, where you either need to be entertaining children, either fully hands-on entertaining children, or they need to be on screens. There's no in between, right? It's either, this is when we're not entertaining them, they're screens. This is what I get a lot of, right? Or I need to be fully hands-on. So this is the default kind of remote channel that we've kind of programmed ourselves to be in. And this is really not healthy, actually, right? The middle ground is actually the most fertile ground for lots of growing of your child, right? This is where they get to experiment with things like boredom that we're going to cover more, with things like self-directed behavior, more autonomous behavior, more independence, right? Figuring things out, problem solving, all of these things, the really good stuff that happens in development usually happens, I would say, in between when you're not completely hands-on and you give them a little bit of room to figure things out.
But let me say something there that you just mentioned, giving them room, okay? Now, think about smartphones. We might be into the process of giving them room, but we are with our smartphone and they want to grab it from us. And they're bored, or maybe they're about to cry, or, so I do think, as I'm listening to you right now, that for us parents to get into that stage that we're giving them the space for that, sometimes our even smartphone has to be away because they're going to grab it from us. And it's hard. Like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about my 5-year-old. How many times she grabs my phone and I'm talking to my husband and I'm like, and then 20 minutes pass by and she was on YouTube Kids, which I hate. Yeah. Okay. I hate it. And it's because my smartphone was there, so she didn't grab the Legos,
right. And it feels like this is even for us. So it feels like we either need to be entertained or working or doing something like super hands-on, or we're on our screens, right? There's, again, not that middle ground for like all the good stuff of life that happens in between. So that's a really good point. So that's where we start projecting some of our own kind of discomforts a lot of times and feelings with our children, right? Because if we can't handle, so a lot of you, I love, again, that a lot of you actually wrote boredom. I know it's not the vulnerable answer Mariam was looking for, but this really shows me that how much we project onto our kids that we can't handle boredom, we're on our phones, they can't handle boredom, they need to be on TV. This is a total projection, right, of how we feel about boredom and what needs to happen around that. Also, other ways and expectations that like we can project onto our kids are when we might think, okay, it's very important that you learn, I don't like gaming, so I don't want you to be doing gaming that's not productive. I'm not into that. So much bad can happen from that. Or you need to sit here and really learn art because art is really important in your life. Or this math application, you need to sit here and really focus and not get distracted. This might be more of our fears and anxieties that start to come up of what we really kind of expect and need for our children, that sometimes it gets in the way of us actually being able to understand the true agenda of our child. They go showing us along the way. We choose if we're going to be attuned to it, or we choose if we're not. Sometimes our own needs and voices are louder than it's noise. So we're not even able to see our children for what they're showing us of who they are. This is what I'm into. This is my identity. It's almost like, no, I'm projecting what I want for you, if that makes sense.
100%. And adding something to what you're saying, Evelyn, is the fact that we cannot turn into the enemies of our children's digital world. Okay, this is a huge, this is an advice that we start from now, because then they're going to be hiding you things. They're not going to be honest with you, and you're not going to get to know them. So when we feel that technology is all wrong, they're going to start hiding it. Yeah. It's like people, for example, that feel that sweets are all wrong. Right. So that child probably has more chances to hide the sweets. Right. The same happens with technology.